Hey, we're back. This is John.
And it's Eric.
And it's What If Geeks, and we don't have a Paul. Uh, Paul's out of town this week, so Eric and I decided we're going to do another resounding review of another show. Uh, we seem to just catch up on reviews when Paul's not here because he can't seem to watch anything. So we are going to review Hawkeye episodes 1 and 2. Today is Wednesday, December 1st, so I'm going to try to drop this tomorrow night when I get home from work. However, episode 3 did drop today. We just haven't been able to watch it yet. So we're just going to do 1 and 2 for now. But since there's only 6 episodes, I guess we'll do 2 and 2.
Sure. Whatever works.
Maybe. We'll see. Do a review every other week. Although, I mean, this will be next week, so we'll be playing catch up at least. All right, so you want to go through some of the basics of the intro, and then we'll get into the episodes?
Yeah, sure. So this premiered on November 24th on Disney Plus. They dropped the first 2 episodes on that day. They're going to do 1 episode every Wednesday through December 22nd. So the whole series will be completely wrapped up before Christmas. It seems incredibly short, actually, but we'll get into that because I think, well, we'll get there. This story, as far as I can tell from the first 2 episodes, seems to be based almost entirely on a comic story. The saga of Barton and Bishop, which was done by Matt Fraction and David Aja. Everything from the Bishop Barton relationship to Tracksuit Mafia, it's all in there. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll change some things to fit in the MCU, but it seems like they probably went, and this is me speculating, not official, but they probably went with something easy and low budget to see if this was going to catch. So Jeremy Renner is back to play Hawkeye and Clint Barton, which I didn't realize this until I was looking earlier today, but he has been in this role for over a decade now. First appearance in Thor, which was really more of a cameo, but then and that was 2011, and then he was, of course, in the original Avengers in 2012. So he's been in his role for quite a long time. Kind of surprising, I guess, but maybe Jeremy Renner doesn't have that much more to do. I don't know. Really, I mean, he hasn't had a lot to do with Hawkeye, which I think we can make that a big talking point before we even get into the episode. Haley Steinfeld is playing Kate Bishop in this, who could possibly be the future Hawkeye if they follow the storyline. Although she's not the Hawkeye after Barton, there's one in between, so who knows what they're doing. The only thing I remember her from is Ender's Game, and she was quite a bit younger when she did that. I'm not sure. Oh, she's in that True Grit.
She was in Bumblebee.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, I guess.
Yeah.
Alakwa Cox plays Maya Lopez, who I can only assume will be Echo as we move forward in this. Sure seemed that way, although they just gave her like a 2-minute screen introduction so far. And then not that her character really matters, and that's something else I'd like to talk about before we hop in, but Vera Farmiga is in this, who has really been, I mean, she does some sci-fi stuff, but a lot of horror, right? All the Conjuring series and Annabelle and other things that I'm forgetting. Well, I know she's been in other stuff besides that. What the hell was that series? The Bates Motel. She played Norma, the mother.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so nobody else of any serious consequence in this, and I'm sure again that's money-saving effort on their part to see if this is going to stick. But
sure. One thing that I learned listening to reviews and stuff about this that I didn't realize, I mean, Hawkeye, like we said it before when they first announced this, was that, Hawkeye is a good character to do a series on, because like you said, he he's been a pivotal part of the different movies, but not like, but at the same time, not like he's been a background character, so he's not as popular as Hulk and Thor and and Captain America, but he's been there through the whole thing, right? So a good way to utilize the characters to do a series. What I learned was that apparently Kevin Feige um, decided to try out this series on Renner's performance in Age of Ultron when he does that whole the speech that we talked about with him and Wanda when she's hiding and she doesn't want to go out to help, and he's like, it's crazy, I can't do this, and he says, there are robots flying around and gods and whatever, and I've got a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense, but I'm going out there, and if you come out there, you're an Avenger. It was that little clip that Kevin Feige based this whole thing on, was because to kind of focus on the whole fact that Hawkeye is, while he's the best marksman in the world, he has no powers. So, it doesn't make sense when you compare it to everything else. But when the call came to become an Avenger, he answered it. So that's why Feige decided to make the series, which I'm all about. It's cool.
I agree with you. The thing I think is interesting about this, though, it's kind of a deviation because Marvel has taken a bunch of, B character, C-list characters and made them like super interesting and given them their own movie. With Hawkeye, they've done almost the exact opposite. They've downplayed him the whole time. They've made fun of him. They made him kind of a meme. And, because he doesn't have any superpowers and he's kind of like, oh yeah, the guy with the arrows back there, right? And so now they've decided to make a series out of it, and definitely the series is going to have to be some character building because they even play to that a little bit, I think, in the first episode, and when Bishop tells him like you got a branding issue because you hide everything. Is that second one?
Yeah, but you're right.
She tells him you got a branding issue because you hide everything about you that's interesting. But really, I think that's a joking reference to Marvel has not done much to make him an interesting character.
Right. Yeah. And it kind of goes to play with kind of how Renner's played the character up to this point is he's leaned heavier on the spy thing. You learn more about him with the family and everything, like how even among the Avengers, he played everything close to the vest, where when they went back to his house in Age of Ultron, half of them didn't even know he had a family.
Yeah.
And we'll touch more on that too. But going back to the actors in here, like Maya Lopez, Echo. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's going to be straight up Echo in this thing, like we said. Well, spoiler alert for next week, episode 3 is named Echo. So I think we got a fair clue as to who she is. I'm going out on a limb now, just because I did it with WandaVision. I'm going to do it now. For this series, my Mephisto is going to be the Kingpin. and as we go through this, there's a few things that happens in these 2 episodes that make me think the Kingpin is lurking in the background. One, the major one right now, talking about Echo, is in the comics, she works for the Kingpin. Or at least in the beginning, she does. So there's a tie right there. There's a few other alluding notes in the dialogue within these 2 episodes when they talk about how high up it goes and this and that and whatever, and people who have powerful friends, and we'll get into all that. But I think Kingpin is lurking in the background, and considering that they've already poorly hidden the fact that Matthew Cox is coming back as Daredevil in Spider-Man No Way Home in a couple of weeks, I think they're getting Vincent D'Onofrio back, and he's going to be in this, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a total aside, but I kind of heard that they were going to do a different sort of Kingpin in that series that's coming, where he was going to be like ridiculously large, like in the comics, not.
And I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would like to see them actually try to get it more comic out. I don't know who the fuck you get outside of like the Mountain from Game of Thrones, but then he's too much. I mean, the Kingpin's like an overweight dude, but
No,
he's
I
got.
mean, yeah, I mean, they could do it. They could do it with just trick camera shots stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be like Hagrid and
Harry
whatchamacallit.
Potter. Yeah. Yeah. And then Vera Farmiga, Bishop's mother, was it Eleanor or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
her name's Eleanor. Yeah.
that. I want to think, well, and we'll get into it further, but I think maybe she might wind up being a bigger comic character than we actually think. They might be, sometimes in MCU, they kind of blur a couple of comic characters together to make something else.
Yeah.
I think they might be doing that here. And
Yeah,
we'll
it's
get.
possible. I mean, she's kind of a big name compared to everybody else in this, and it's a little bit weird that they did that.
That she's just.
Could be indicative of something bigger. Yeah.
I think, and as we get further along into this, I'll kind of talk more about it. All right, so episode 1, titled "Never Meet Your Heroes," which is funny.
I gotta say on this episode, I was a little bit confused in the beginning about what was his daughter versus what was Kate Bishop, because I don't know if I wasn't paying close enough attention or what. I'm like, wait a minute, is that his daughter? Oh wait, no.
Yeah, the beginning flashback, because she does look a lot like his daughter in like Age of Ultron or whatever. Like she also looks like Ant-Man's daughter too. So like all these little kids look alike to me lately. But you see a young Kate Bishop at her apartment. Now, does it open on the parents arguing? I think it does, right?
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
They're arguing over money, right? So her mother and father are. It's a large, well-to-do apartment in New York City, right? So multiple floors on this thing. So they've got money, but they're arguing over said money, and you see Kate kind of balanced on some books and a chair or whatever, listening an event to what they're saying. And basically, Eleanor tells her husband that they're probably gonna have to sell the penthouse or whatever, and he says no, things aren't that bad, blah blah blah. So obviously there's money trouble with them, and we'll learn more about that later. They realize she kind of stumbles a little bit. They realize she's listening. He goes up and talks to her for a minute, and then says he's going down to his office when she goes to bed. When she goes back to playing or whatever. While she's playing, you kind of see one of the Chitauri fly past the window, but then everything starts to rumble. So she comes out of her room because the whole building starts to shake from explosions outside. And as she goes outside or out into the
hole that's now in her apartment.
Yeah, well, when first she goes out of her room and there's the large skylight in the living room or whatever, and one of the Chitauri battleship alien things flies over it, and you realize, okay, they already said it was 2012, but you realize it's right in the middle of the battle for New York.
And their apartment is literally outside of the Avengers Tower. Like
it's like right across. It's like right 2 buildings away. So everything blows up, and all of a sudden there's a gaping hole in her fucking apartment. And she's standing there, and she looks across the street, and one of the Chitauri warriors is flying at her to kill her, and all of a sudden an arrow hits him and blows him up. And right through the smoke, she sees Hawkeye do that jump off of the building that you see him do in the original Avengers, where he launches his grappling hook arrow, catches, and swings into the building. But that's all she sees. But they do the cut from a different angle, so you see it how she sees it, and they even kind of click in like a little bit of the Avengers theme to show you how epic she thinks it is.
It's a little bit of a slow motion thing with the jump.
Yeah. The slow motion thing was cool. So everything happens for her in slow motion, and it's really like she's fixated on Hawkeye, and he disappears, and her mom comes and pulls her out of there. She asks about her father. The mother doesn't answer and runs off. We cut to the funeral for her father. Kate tells her mother, I need to protect us. And her mother says, it's my job. And Kate says, I need a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
So, so you see, like right there, she's like, her idol is Hawkeye now, right? Then she grows up. Now she's 22, and it cuts to her and her friends doing what any college kids do, and they do prank bullshit, and they're trying to make the bell in a bell tower ring with one of her arrows. It's got like a softball attached to it or whatever. So when she tries to do it the first time, nothing happens. And they're debating whether or not it's the bell that moves or the clangy thing in the middle. Is what they call it, right? So nothing happens. You just hear a dull, like, dong. So then she goes, hang on, I got an idea. And she takes out another arrow with like a little hook thing on it, like a pincer. And she shoots this one and it catches the rope so this show you how good of a shot she is. It catches the rope that they would use to ring the bell, and it spins the thing inside and rings the bell. So they're all like, yay, we did it. And all of a sudden the bell, I guess, is too much momentum there. She hit it too hard or whatever happened. Somehow that arrow managed to make too much momentum, but it is what it is. Something cracks in the foundation of the support for the bell. And they're like, all right, that wasn't so bad. And then the whole bell comes crashing down through the tower and destroys the bell, the tower, the clock inside the tower, everything. And then she gets caught. Then we cut to Hawkeye and his kids, and they're at a Broadway musical.
Dude, I love this part. This is so hilarious. It's done like the perfect like Disney Broadway style musical thing.
It was so perfectly shot that I was just like, this is amazing, right?
It seemed like a real production that you would see if there were actual
events. There are rumors, or at least fans, begging for Feige to like release the Rogers the musical cut. Where they're like, we know you shot this whole thing. So it's Rogers the musical, so it's all about Captain America, Steve Rogers, right? But it's like him and all the Avengers up on the stage, and their iconic theme song, I Can Do This All Day. And it's just like bombastic Broadway musical where they're just singing, I can do this all day, and they're doing the whole thing where Tony Stark does the little hands down, he floats above the stage, whatever, on the wires, and you see them all, like the guy as Hulk is smash, smash, and he's like picking up a fake boulder, whatever, and it's really campy shit. And I guess his daughter looks at him and says, like, it's not, I guess it's not very accurate, right? And he's like, nah, it's not that bad. And then he goes, he wasn't there, and Ant-Man is on.
Ant-Man, yeah.
Ant-Man is on the same. Well, he's basically just like in a little like Pym shirt or whatever, right? But he's Ant-Man. He's supposed to be Ant-Man. I actually had a theory about this one though, and I got it from somebody else too, just talking about it. What if now he was not in the original Avengers movie, right? But in Avengers Endgame, Ant-Man does go back in time with Cap and Hulk and Tony, right? To go after the Tesseract. What if, like, somewhere in there, somebody in New York just saw him and like snapped a picture of him, and because of Endgame, they thought he was with the original Avengers. Which, you know what I mean? Which would explain why he's in this musical, but also would be a nice little nod to like the original Avengers comic where he's one of the founding members, kind of, I don't know. It would be kind of funny. I don't know if they'll ever even like bother touching on it, but it was my way of trying to save a production error, But I think it's just funny that they specifically have him in there and have Hawkeye say he wasn't there. But it could just be a throwaway joke, or it could be at least something that they'll go back to later, like he was there because of Endgame or whatever. Who knows?
You know, one of the other important things that happens in this scene is that you start to hear this high pitched noise, and the song fades out, and his daughter leans over to him after a minute and says, "Did you turn
shut
off
your
the
hearing
hearing
off.
aid?" Yeah. And so apparently, I mean, just as a way to sort of even more humanize him, like he's not super powered, is that all the shit that happened in Endgame and whatever else, he lost his hearing in one ear, all these explosions and shit. And they never specifically identify what caused it, but it's just the point, you know, to drill it home that he's kind of the most human of the Avengers, right?
Yeah. I mean, they do in episode 2 when Kate asks him about the hearing aid. They kind
Yeah,
of
well,
do
he says like explosions or something, you know, I'm not even sure what.
multiple. It
Yeah.
was just multiple, just like I've got some hearing loss from my time in the Navy, right? Because of multiple loud sounds over time, I've got hearing loss. Same thing for him, and it's kind of how they like in the flashbacks. They do it real quick, just one explosion here, something here, there, whatever, from the different movies. So yeah, he's definitely fallible. He's not a god. He's not irradiated by super soldier serum or gamma radiate.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's important in this first episode that they're really establishing is that he doesn't want to be. He doesn't
No,
even want to be Hawkeye, it seems like. He just wants to like live his life and be with his family. And
yeah, after and that's the key where like that high pitched noise kicks in after he kind of focuses on the actress playing Black Widow in the musical. That's the trigger for him is Natasha. And like just after she died, he beat Thanos the second time. He's done. He doesn't want to do it anymore, really. He's just with his family, chilling out. And you're right. I think he's again like reluctantly drawn into everything again. So uh yeah, we cut back to Kate heading home to her mother.
so,
And
you know,
go
this
ahead.
is this is a complaint point for me, actually, is that I feel like they put, and again, maybe they'll make it worthwhile before the end of this 6 episodes. I think they put too much time into Kate and her mom and her stepdad weirdo, and like all of it feels a little bit boring and excessive to me anyway. Like,
I think it's going to grow, and we're about to get into that. So all right, you want to take this part and then I'll kind of key in.
I can make an effort. So I think they're getting ready for some sort of charity event, right? Her mom's all dressed up fancy. She was like, "What's going on? Oh, we got a charity event tonight, whatever."
Yeah, but I got to talk to you.
Yeah. Um, so she learns, I think this is the point she learns where her mom is engaged to that weirdo with the mustache, Jack.
Yeah, Duquesne. Jack Duquesne.
Yeah, so I think maybe remember that name from the comics.
Jacques Duquesne is the swordsman.
Ah, so yeah, okay. So at least from and this explains the fencing scene later. Okay, but
Yes.
so he's something of a mentor to Hawkeye.
He was an Avengers villain. He's kind of been back and forth whether or not he's good. But yeah, he started out as like an Avengers villain or a Captain America villain or something. But he is the swordsman from years and years ago. He's an old school character. So they just updated his name to Jack Duquesne. You also meet his grandfather.
Yeah, is that his grandfather? No,
Or his father. Is his father?
I think
Armand Duquesne.
I think it's his father, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I thought at first it was his father, but I thought somebody said it was his grandfather. But he's too young to be his grandfather, I think.
This just proves how uninteresting this whole storyline is if you can't even remember it later.
But in the comics, Armand Duquesne is the swordsman's father, and they're in there. Basically, when Kate realizes that her mother's engaged, she goes outside to get some air, and she sees a one-eyed golden retriever who is out of the Hawkeye comic. That's Lucky the dog, who apparently is a lot smarter than we think. We'll learn that later, I guess. When she comes back in, she overhears a mother and Armand arguing, and Armand basically tells her, like, I've got a lot of powerful friends. And I wanted to, like, this is another point where I thought, like, the mafia and the kingpin might be involved, because it's a lot of, you get into a few things in here where there's some shady shit going on, and like, she didn't have any money, and all of a sudden she had money again after the husband died, so maybe life insurance or whatever. But I think even the father might have been connected. Like, Kate's father might have been connected as well.
Yeah, I mean, he seems kind of perturbed when they do the sword auction thing, right? And they say, like, Ronan upended the criminal underworld or whatever. And
yes, yeah. That's later on in this episode when they do the auction and they have Ronan's sword. Yes, you're right. When they say, the Ronin decimated the criminal underworld, it cuts to Armand, and Jack kind of smirks at him, and Armand looks pissed. So
yeah.
I think I think there's definitely a mob connection among at least those two. And I even think Kate's parents, which is probably how she met or knew Jack, because she even says something back to Armand, like, either we both have powerful friends or we both whatever, but she at least lets Kate know that, or she hints at the fact that she didn't always have money, but I think she's involved with more than what she seems. I think she's a lot more than what she seems.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think the father, grandfather, whatever the fuck he is, even hints at that at some point, right? Like, oh yeah, he seems to think he hit the jackpot. I'm not so sure about her,
Right. Yeah. So
so auction then. So they do the auction. First up is Ronan's sword.
A secret little basement area, and it shows you how sneaky and attentive Kate is, though, because she hears the one waiter going downstairs, and somebody says something about he says Gary said only two platters go down, and she grabs a third and goes down. And when somebody asks her what she's doing down there, she says Gary sent me down here.
Yeah, go touch it.
Yeah.
Turns out Gary was there. He didn't like that. But so they do the Ronin sword auction. The son, grandson, fuck, I feel terrible that I don't know what it is now.
We'll say son.
Bids against him even though he has no money, and then he's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, I'm gonna inherit it all someday. And he drives the price of the sword up to, like, I don't know, 450 grand or something crazy.
Something like that, yeah.
And then the suit comes out next, which is kind of a bit of a plot point in the next episode too. But
the Ronin suit.
The Ronin suit comes out next, right? And I think it's right around that time that the
tracksuit mafia comes in.
Yeah, the tracksuit mafia busts in, and they're looking for something else, a watch.
They're looking for a watch, yeah.
And I don't think they explained what that was about.
Not right away, but you do, like, you see, all right, they're auctioning off the suit. The tracksuit mafia comes in. They blow a hole in the side of the building. They come in while all the people are kind of on the floor. One says to another one, make sure we get the watch. Everything else is secondary. So they start grabbing everything. Kate sees the suit sitting in the case. So she grabs that and throws it on and starts to fight them, which is a really cool scene. Like, it shows off, like, because she's been like an overachiever, I guess, ever since the day she saw Hawkeye, where she's got multiple medals, and, like, she got a black belt at 15. She's a perfect archer.
They established that she's an awesome archer, awesome at martial arts, and then a little bit later that she's also like a state champion fencer.
Yeah. So she definitely, like, excels at a lot of things, much like Hawkeye, right? So she fights them all, and
she's whooping their ass with, like, wine bottles and shit.
And she doesn't. I mean, she gets hit a few times. She's not perfect at it, So it definitely shows where it's more of a human side of things. It's not she's not straight up John Wick, but she's going pretty close to it. Like,
Yeah, well, no, actually, they do that a lot in this episode too, where she has like she constantly, we'll say, overestimates her own ability on shit, and she thinks she can do something badass, and it's not quite there.
Yeah. She does a few things like that, and then there's a few that pay off. Like she does this little trick with she's got a guy on either side of her, and she kicks a board, and a wine bottle flies up and hits the guy in the head, knocks him out. So she gets out of there. Just as she's getting out of there, one of the mafia guys is outside their truck loading bags, and he opens up one of the bags and he's like, I got the watch. And you see the watch, and now they don't, again, like you said, they don't really kind of dwell on it. I don't know if it's going to be like a thing of if it's just something sentimental, and I'll say sentimental to the Kingpin, or if it's got some kind of tech inside of it, and they need it for something, like maybe Pym Tech or some shit like that, or Stark Tech, whatever. But they don't dwell on it. There's the watch is there, and the funny thing here is, as soon as he realizes he's got the watch, Lucky the dog comes running over and bites his ankle, almost like he's trying to get the watch, right? So, which is why I said, like, he seems like he's smarter than you think,
Yeah.
like he was sent there or something. It was weird that the dog is there. So the dog attacks him. The guy kicks the dog a couple of times. It yelps. Kate in the Ronin suit comes out, sees this, intervenes on the dog's behalf, and knocks the guy out, and then takes off running with the dog. I think they go back to her apartment, right?
Yeah.
And she tells the dog, all right, well, wait here. She feeds him some pizza, and she decides she's going to go to Armand's house to try to figure out what the hell was going on, right? Try to get to the bottom of the secret auction that she saw. And as soon as she breaks it, again, while she's got some cool moves, hopping over the bushes and whatever, you see her struggling to climb into the window. So, she's new at this shit. And she gets in the room, and Armand is dead, bleeding out from his abdomen. So obviously, it was obvious that he was run through with a sword, right?
Yeah.
And he's laying on the face down on the floor, dead. She finds him. Now, the one thing that they pause on are his monogrammed candies, right? He's got monogrammed candies in there, and she kind of looks at them like, like they're old man, like Werther's candies, or whatever, but they're monogrammed, So that comes into play later. But she sees him dead, and then she hears the cleaner come in, or the maid or whatever come in talking to him. So she escapes back out the window, still gets caught on like surveillance cameras or whatever, leaving the area. When she runs away, it cuts to the news talking about the attack on the charity event, and it shows her in the Rona suit and the dog running away across the street. Clint sees this on TV and realizes somebody's got his suit, so he decides he's going to go check it out. She's running from the house, and as she's running, she gets surrounded by the tracksuit mafia, who think she's actually Ronin.
Yeah. Which
is kind of funny. I mean, I don't, looking at the two of them next to each other, she's like, right? She's not as big as him. And it's clear when she's fighting, yelling, whatever, she's grunting, that it's clear it's a girl, right? but they make an effort to establish that the tracksuit mafia guys are not the brightest in the bunch, so they're pretty dumb.
Yeah, I mean, they're taken straight out of the comic, because
they're stupid,
constantly saying bro, and everybody's a fucking idiot. It's like, they like, to the T, they marked it up that way.
Yeah. So they attack her, and she gets overwhelmed, so she runs into a car, and they try to. So one dude straight up tries to punch the window, which doesn't work right. I mean, You're gonna break your hand. So just again pointing out how dumb he is. But just as she's like about to get overwhelmed by all of them, all of a sudden, like they start getting taken out, and you realize that Hawkeye is there, just in a hood, and he beats the shit out of them with like a towel. He takes everybody out with nothing but a fucking towel, right? Just to show how badass he really is, right? So he drags her out of the car, pulls her down an alleyway, and then she's trying to fight him off, and he yanks the hood off, and he goes, "What do you say?" He's like, "You gotta be kidding me!" He's like, "Come on, right?" Yeah, he says, "Come on," because he realizes it's just a girl, right? And she looks at him, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're Hawkeye." He goes, "Who the hell are you?" And then it cuts to black. So, all right. So we move on to episode 2, hide and seek, and I don't know if they're going to keep doing this, but I like the way they did this, at least between episode 1 and 2. They immediately open exactly where episode 1 left off. In fact, the first 10 seconds is him dragging her down the alleyway again and pulling the hood off. Come on. So then he said, "Who the hell are you?" And she's like, "I'm Kate Bishop." She doesn't have a good answer. This is who I am. So he decides to take her back to her apartment. And when they get there, he sees the dog, whatever. She feeds him pizza again. And he tries to ask her, like, she's like, "I saw a dead body and this and that and whatever." And like they go, like she's just like rambling because she's not used to this shit. And I think they're in there for like maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden you hear outside this Russian voice, "Kate Bishop." And like, so they know who she is already. Right. I forget how they found her.
This is after her telling him, I don't think I was followed or whatever. But then
Yeah.
"Oh, but my name is on the whatever, the doorbell or something."
Oh, yeah, exactly. So she was followed. Obviously, they were followed, and so the tracksuits are outside, and they decide they're gonna throw Molotov cocktails into the fucking apartment to kill her. And it's funny because one of the keys here is like right as they get ready to throw them, Hawkeye breaks out the window so it won't like just blow up on impact. It comes flying through the window. He catches it and throws it right back at them. So the first one blows up right behind them, and then the second one, the guy goes to throw, and I think Kate shoots it out of his hand. Right. So it's 2 down. So it shows that both of them can kind of handle the situation. But another couple of cocktails come through the window, place is on fire. Somehow they get the hell out of there. And she says that, oh, well, when he asked her about the apartment, she says she inherited it. Remember? And it's above a pizza joint, which is another reason why I thought maybe like her parents were attached to the mob. Because if she inherited this apartment above the pizza joint, that might have been one of the either the fronts for the mafia that the father worked through, or used to strong arm for money and got the apartment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could
be. There could be some background there. I haven't, outside of knowing who Kate Bishop is in the comics, I haven't read too much with her in it. Just knowing she was one of the Young Avengers and whatever. I didn't really I don't know the whole backstory, so I don't know how her parents really, what their background looks like in the comics. But knowing what we've learned in the show so far, it seems like they got their money somehow. And like I said, the mom just seems to be very comfortable in the lifestyle. Plus, there's some things in there where she just seems like she's not really phased by certain things going on. So I think she's more than what she seems, like I said. And there's a character in the comics, Madame Mask or or The Mask or something like that, where it's another mafia, like a woman that works for the kingpin or something. Where I think they might be combining her mother and that character, and that she might be that character.
Yeah, it is. It is Madame Mask, M-A-S.
Madam Mask.
Yeah. Oh, that's who you think they're gonna make her mother into.
I think so. Yeah, and I think she's actually behind more than what she seems. We'll get into that here in a minute. But yeah, they escape and they decide to go to Kate's aunt's apartment. And the whole way there is just, it's funny because the whole way between going to her apartment and then going to her aunt's apartment, Clint is looking around, whatever, and Kate's like, "What are you scanning for threats? What are you doing?" like she's trying to learn from him, and he's just like trying to like shut her down, like just this is what I do all the time. I always got to watch, you know. But she's trying to learn how he operates, and he's just like not having it, like just relax. So it gets her to her aunt's apartment and says he's going to circle back to her apartment to try to get the running suit. And when he gets there, he goes to a fire truck to steal one of the jackets to kind of go incognito, and there's a firefighter LARP sticker on the fire truck. So live action role play. So he goes in, the suit's gone, so somebody's taking it. He figures out that it's one of the firefighters, and he's gonna go LARP in this damn Ronin suit. So he goes back, tells her that he's gonna walk her to work, and then that's where you get into the whole like their conversation about branding and everything, because as they're walking, this kid goes, "Mommy, look, a superhero," and Clint turns around because the kid's pointing toward them, but he's pointing past them at some like street performers who are dressed as Captain America and Hulk, and and that's when she's like, "No, that's your problem, is branding." And he's like, "It's not a problem."
That's funny. That's funny too, because right on that scene, there's like a girl in like a black suit with a bow and arrow, and she's like, "See, you're over there too." And he's like, "That's Katniss Everdeen."
Yeah. It is a really funny scene. Like, look, there's a female you, and he's like, "That's Katniss Everdeen." So that's what she has this whole conversation about how his problem is branding, and he's like, I don't have a problem. I'm not trying to sell anything.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's going to come into play later, where I think she's going to bring something out in him, as far as his personality goes as an Avenger. I definitely don't think, as reluctant as he is to get into all this shit, I don't think like he's ever going to be able to just put down the bow and arrow. And as much as he would like to, he's not going to be able to. So I think there's going to be a turning point for his character in this arc, to be a little more approachable to fans or whatever, I guess. I don't know. So
sorry, I was rewatching these scenes too where we're talking about it. It's his uncle.
Not his uncle. Okay. Wow. Jesus. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
in the apartment scene.
Okay. In the comics, it's his father, and here it's his uncle. Either way, he's going to inherit everything if the guy dies, and he did. So, so that was convenient. So Clint tells her, he walks her to work and tells her, "Look, I'm giving you my number for emergencies only. Don't call me. This is the last time we're going to see each other." And when he says this is the last time we're probably going to see each other, you see how like hurt she is, because like he's her idol, and he's just like brushing her off, So she's kind of like, she's truly hurt by the whole thing, and she's like, "Well, I'll call you later." And he's like, "No, don't." He basically tells her, "I've got a lead on the suit. I'm going to go get it. You just go to work and do your thing. I'm going to take care of things from here." So Kate goes up into work and meets up with her mother and Jack, who she's suspicious of in Armand's death, right? And I forget the exact conversation that's going on there, but when she's talking to Jack, he's like, he blinks at her a few times, like he can't believe that she's talking to him the way she's talking to him. And I'm actually wondering if it's a kind of like a double front, like he's making her focus on him to keep her from suspecting her mother in anything, which would do the whole Madame Mask thing, which would also explain why the two of them got together, you know, like I said, with the mafia connection. So
Okay.
maybe, I don't know.
No, it's possible.
Because the mother just kind of like looks like she's not perplexed by anything the daughter's really saying. Like she looks like she's faking being offended by it a little bit. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into it. Like I said, Kingpin, Mephisto, Kingpin. So
We go on to the LARP thing next.
Oh my god, this is so funny.
This is so funny too, and this is although this is done, I think, largely for comedic value, it's also part of sort of humanizing him, because like all he wants to do is take this suit from this dude that he could easily whip his ass and snatch the suit, and then instead of that, he has to play this stupid game where he has to like register for the LARP and go fight with them and stuff. And he's like, I really don't want to do this. Like, come on.
They're like, you want to go talk to him, you got to do this. And like they're asking like name, phone number, email, and he's like, it's classified. They're like, just give me it, let me sign it. Let's get on with this. And they give him some fake armor and a sword, and he's like, are you serious? And they're like, you gotta do it. So he and
I like the way they do the battle scene in this, though. It's kind of amusing.
It is.
He's like, they tell him that you're only dead if you get hit in the abdomen or whatever.
Right.
He's like surrounded by people that are whacking him on the back, and he's just protecting his stomach. And then he does some little ridiculous move where he like spins and kills everybody.
Yeah.
And they do all this like slow motion shit with like snow flying, but it's so fake because it's like these LARPers, and like somebody accidentally bumps into him and throws their sword in the air. It's like, it's just so ridiculous.
It is. It's hilarious. So he gets to the guy with the Ronin suit. And it's funny too, because they point out like, look, everybody in there is cops and firefighters. You really want to go in there and cause a scene?
Yeah.
And so that's why he's like, fuck, I can't do this here. So he gets up with the guy in the Ronin suit and basically tells him, you're gonna give me that suit.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know you took it.
Stupid sword and take the suit from you, or I can real punch you and take that suit from you.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, no, I'm a huge fan. Let me kill you. I'll give you the suit, man.
Yeah, that was the thing. He was like, wait a minute. He's like, you're Hawkeye. And he's like, he rolls his eyes like, yeah. He goes, and so he tells him, he's like, you got to realize, like, this is my one chance. He's like, you know, if I kill you in front of all these people, you know, I'll have like a lot of cred here, you know? So he's like, I'll just give you the suit if you go with it. And Hawkeye's like, fine, whatever, you know.
Yeah, he bends over, like, make it quick.
Yeah, make it quick. He's like, no, we got to do like a trial by combat. He's like, fuck. He cannot get out of this thing to save his life. So they do this whole trial by combat where the two of them are squared up against each other and everybody's watching, which I guess makes it more credible for the firefighter, right? Because they all know who he is. So he kills him in a trial by combat. So you know they fight a little bit, and Hawkeye's just trying to get it over with. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "We got to make it look good." So Hawkeye makes it look good for him a little bit.
Even the trial by combat though is so funny. Like, there's people on the outskirts of the circle like making noises like their swords like clanking and shit.
Yeah, the whole invisible potion thing at the beginning. Like, he's not drinking the potion. It was so funny. So he lets the guy kill him, and then they cut to right after that, and the guy's handing him the suit, and you see it's this black guy, and he tells him, you know, my name is Grills, and he says something about, you know, he says, my name is Grills, and he's like, you know, I really appreciate what you did for me. You have no idea. and Hawkeye says Clint, and pounds him, and the guy's like, I can call you Clint. He's like, yeah, just like nods his head, like, yeah, it's okay. So Grills is actually a character in the Hawkeye comic. I think it's like his
Yeah, he
neighbor or something.
is, and he ends up getting killed.
Yeah. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, so
Although
I don't know if they're gonna play it out, but in the comic, he lives in the same building as Hawkeye, and he like grills food on the rooftop all the time. He has like a rooftop grill thing going on, barbecues for his friends or whatever. But he ends up getting killed by the tracksuit mafia in the comic. So I don't know if they're gonna, he's gonna find out. Oh shit, that firefighter dude. He's a firefighter, right? I think. Yeah, that firefighter dude lives in my building. Oh, how cool is that? Because they even try to like make a little connection between them. Well, I think this is what you're about to say. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah, you could.
Grills is saying like, this is the best day of my life, man.
Yeah.
And Clint's like, I can't really say the same. He's like, but come on, man, you had a little bit of fun. He's like, well, I'm not sad I did it. Like,
right, yeah.
Just really humanizing him again. Like he's actually empathetic towards people and shit, right?
Yeah, and it is funny because right at the whole kill scene, a couple times in there, you see where there's a part of Hawkeye that doesn't want to go through with it because of his pride. Like you can see, and then like when he gets quote unquote killed, you see how like that look on his face, like I can't believe I just did this, because he's got that pride. He's the best marksman in the world or whatever, so he shouldn't be killed by this fucking LARPer. But yeah, it definitely humanizes him more. I do think with the way Marvel has been going with just, I guess, how their modus operandi for these series, I think they might be setting Grills up as he's one of the few characters you meet by name in this, and I think he's going to follow his comic arc and wind up getting killed just to bring something else home for Hawkeye or whatever, probably the tracksuit mafia is going to somehow
it'll be
attach him to Hawkeye.
It'll be another motivator for him too, to stay engaged and help with whatever the hell's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be he's already lost people like Black Widow. It's clear that it weighs on him. And then this is just going to be some random guy, right, that he LARPed with. And you're like, God damn it.
Right. Yeah. It meant more to the firefighter than it did to him, but it still got the firefighter killed. And again, back to the humanizing thing where he's going to have another motivator to go after the mafia. So he decides, before this, he had sent his kids home to his wife so he could handle things, right? And so he calls home, talks to the wife. They're decorating gingerbread houses or whatever for Christmas, because that's the whole thing. He's supposed to be home for Christmas. This whole thing is set around 5 days before Christmas. So it's definitely, it's a perfect time for them to drop this thing. We're in the Christmas holiday now, so the whole feeling of Christmas in amongst everything else that's going on here is kind of perfect for what's going on, He calls home, talks to his wife, and they got what's her name, Linda Cardellini back too, which I always love her. She's great. So yeah, I mean Marvel gets everybody back. I mean, I think yes, Disney's got the money for everybody, but I think it says something for Kevin Feige's ability to get these people to come back for even minor roles.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They probably enjoy doing it.
Probably, but also I think Marvel Studios / Disney are really careful about getting people to commit to long-term
contracts. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think they do.
Even if it's 2 minutes in a future series.
Yeah, I think they're definitely careful about like, hey, you have to agree that if we need you, you're going to come back. But overall, like in any kind of marketing and this and that, whatever, every time you see these actors, there's very, very few that you ever see outside of the Scarlett Johansson thing with the streaming hiccup. you don't see any of these actors complaining about these, especially the MCU, just the MCU, right? Anything else maybe, but the MCU as a whole, you don't see these guys complaining about being there. Like they just seem to be having the time of their lives. And from a geek standpoint, like yeah, like if I get to play even a minor character in a fucking superhero movie, and you want me to come back, I'm running.
Well,
Like yeah,
I mean, at this point, it's a what 12-year long franchise. So I mean,
yeah, yeah, you're gonna make money. So there's that. You're gonna make money, but they just seem to enjoy doing it. So she's back. So he calls her and just basically says, it's gonna be a couple more days, and she's like, "You got 5 days." He's like, "I promised our daughter I'd be home." So she's like, "You got to do what you got to do." And she says, "What's the play?" And he says, "Catch and release," or what did it say? Yeah, catch and release, right? Something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
Or basically like he's gonna let them catch him. And she's like, "Oh, one of Nat's favorites." And it kind of like flashes you back to not. It doesn't actually flash back, but it reminds you of the original Avengers movie when, ironically, the Russians had her captured and tied to a chair. So there might have even been the tracksuit mafia that had her back then. And basically she was just playing them to get information, even though she was tied to a chair.
Mhm.
And when they call and give her the phone, there's that whole thing where she's like, "He's giving me everything I want." The guy's like, "What the fuck is she talking about?" And she escapes and kicks the shit at everybody, right? So that's his ploy. He's going to go in there, let them catch him, and get information from them. I'm also wondering because somebody, the guy following YouTube, new rock stars, he does reviews on all these shows too, and he said, which I kind of like this idea. He wonders the way she seems to always kind of be into his Avengers life, as far as like she knows and like she knows what he's doing, she knows of his operations. If they're not setting her up to be, who's the girl that was a Mockingbird?
Yeah, Mockingbird.
Mockingbird. If they're setting, because there was a few different Mockingbirds, maybe they're setting her up to be like a former Mockingbird, and then they fell in love and got married, and she retired because she had kids, which would be interesting.
Maybe, although I don't know. I kind of feel like the suit that they put on Bishop is kind of like a mashup of the old Hawkeye suit and the Mockingbird suit.
Yeah, I think so. But I liked his theory on Linda Cardellini being an old Mockingbird.
Mm.
Now, at the same time, I also like the idea of, while he admitted to her that he's, a super spy and an Avenger and this and that, whatever, her being completely out of it. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of like both. I like both ideas a little bit. I like the idea of her just being like a civilian that was like, all right, well, no, I just, I love you because of this, but, I appreciate the fact that you're doing all this other shit. But at the same time, I also like the idea of like her having a little bit more of a backstory, because she's another pretty decent named actor, to at least, yeah, even if they're never going to use her in that role, if they explain, oh yeah, she was Mockingbird years ago or whatever, that
Yeah, I
wouldn't.
think in the comics, he's married to Mockingbird for a while, right? But then they get
Yeah,
divorced or something.
yeah. So they
Maybe.
could they could do it. They could do it.
And she was Mockingbird was one of the sort of B-list new Avengers.
Mhm.
Although everything we've seen so far seems like they're setting up not new
Young
Avengers,
Avengers.
but young Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah. So just another theory. I mean, she could not be. Either way, I like Linda Cardellini, so she can just show up, and I'm happy. So yeah, so basically, he tells her he's gonna let them catch him. She's like, "All right, just be careful. I'll see you for Christmas." Basically. So let me see.
I think the next part is when Kate challenges
Yes.
to the fencing duel, basically.
Yeah, she goes to dinner with
For
them, and
being way too played out of a scene, but okay. Like I feel like they're harping on it really hard, and I hope it's gonna pay off, but feels like a
well,
waste of time.
this is another reason why I really think that, because again, like her mother doesn't barely bat an eye at the fact that they're going to move furniture around and fence with each other in the house. She tells them, don't stop, and whatever, and then, but she doesn't really like try to stop them, So they fence. She beats him 3 times, and each time she tells him, "Stop letting me win." And he's like, "I'm not. You're good," And like by the third time, like she, there's, I mean, he does like parry a couple of things here and there, but she gets him pretty quick, right? And he says, "So you're very good. You're very," but you can see there's like a slightly underlying tone of mocking in him, you know, like he's trying to egg her on, and she's getting more and more pissed, and she's like, "Stop letting me win." And he says, "I'm telling you, I'm not. You're just good. I'm rusty." And then they take off the fencing hoods, and he turns to say something to her mother, because her mother's like, "Are you guys done?" Whatever. And he turns to say something to her, and Kate slashes out with the sword right at his face, and without even looking at her, he blocks it.
Not only blocks it, he
knocks the sword
her.
out of her hand. He disarms her completely, like that. Right? It's a one swift move, blocks the blow and disarms her, and she's just looking at him dumbfounded. And again, her mother does not seem like paused by the fact that he just did this. He just looks at him. She looks at him like, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" And he's like, "I'm fine. It's not the first time somebody's trying to cut my head off." That shows you how good he really is, right? So he is definitely the swordsman from the comics. They're gonna play on that later. Mother tells Kate to apologize or whatever, and she leaves again, I think, right? Because she tells him, she says, "Look," he says, "I'm gonna go change," and Kate tells her mother, "Look, this is proof that he's lying about everything. Like he was able to block that easily. He lied about his ability. He's lying to you. He's lying, whatever." And her mother defends him, which again is why I just think there's a lot more to her than you see. And again, we go back to the caliber of actress they've got playing this role. They don't just have her come in for another character's mother. I think she's going to be more. She's going to at least be. She's got a lot more knowledge. If she's not Madame Mask, which would be a cool little thing, I think that at least she knows a lot more about the criminal underground and is working with him for the Kingpin. So we'll see. So then we get to Clint standing outside a store with his bow and arrow, waiting for the Tracksuit Mafia to finally show up. And they do. They show up in like 3 vans. And he's like, "It took you guys long enough." And they come to get him, and they throw a hood on him. And as they're leading him away, like he's clearly making it like, "Look, I'm letting you take me."
Yeah.
And they are just like, "We've got you. We caught you. Don't
They're gonna whack him with a stick and hood him, and
they hit him,
throw him in the van. They're like, "Oh, that was easy." Like,
they say that was really easy. And he says, as he's getting in the van, "Guys, I can see through the hood." So they take him to their base. They pull the hood off him. And, the head guy is like, "All right, we caught you. Now, now you talk." And he's like, basically, he's like, basically he tells him like, "I'll let you catch me," whatever. He's like, no, we caught you, whatever. And he's like, "You got a really interesting place here. It's like an old toy warehouse or some shit like that, right?" Yeah. And the guy who says something like, "You know what real estate is like right now?" And the Russian guy's like, "Real estate sucks, and we're lucky to have this." And there's a guy in the background watching them. And Hawkeye keeps saying, like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the boss. He's like, when the boss
Yeah.
shows up, I'll talk to
You're
him.
like talking to the furniture.
Yeah, he does. He insults the shit out of them all, and they
He's
just
criticizing.
yeah. It was so funny.
Criticizing.
It was so funny. Like the Russian guy was personally offended that he was criticizing the warehouse. So the guy watching them obviously is like the not the leader. You find that out later, but he looks like the leader at first. He's just kind of like sitting in the background on a second level watching, and Hawkeye can see him up there, kind of. He's like, I want to talk to the boss, and then you cut to Kate trying to call him. Right, she's like taking a cab and trying to call him, and kind of basically let him know that she's got more of a lead and she's got suspicions about Jack. Oh, because we go back to when she talks to Jack, he takes out one of the monogrammed candies, and like the way he's acting, he's looking at her and she like offers her the candy, and she stops and looks at him, and he looks at her like he knows she was at the house. You know what I mean? Like he knows a lot more, and he's toying with her. So when she runs off, she tries to call Clint to try to tell him all this. And I think the first time it goes to voicemail or whatever, but then I think the second time the one of the Russians picks it up.
Yeah.
And says, Clint Barton can't come to the phone right now.
Mm-hmm.
So she decides she's going to go try to save his ass. Uses her phone to track his phone, which is amazing because I thought you had to be signed up to the same app to do that, but whatever. I mean, she is part of a security firm, so we'll give her that.
I think that's what they were trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, she's using the security firm's software to track his phone. Gets over there, and then they cut back to him in the warehouse with the Russians. He's antagonizing them. They're getting pissed at him. And then you hear cracking above him because they're asking him, who are you working with? And he's like, there's nobody else. And they're like, who's Kate Bishop?
They're specifically asking about Kate Bishop too. Like,
yeah, and he's like, who's Kate Bishop? I don't know who. Yeah. I know nothing about her. Who is she? And then all of a sudden, the skylight above him breaks, and she comes crashing through and lands on the ground in front of him. And she looks up and she's like, hi. And he just rolls his eyes like, fuck, really? And all the Russians turn their guns on her.
She's like, oh, I didn't realize we were supposed to bring guns.
Yeah. Oh, my favorite part about this too is to show you how good Hawkeye is. As he's talking to them, he undoes the zip ties that they got him, and he brings his hands out in front, like when I talk to him, and they're like, whoa, and they all bring their guns out, and he's like, calm down. Like, I didn't attack you.
I just want to talk to your boss.
Yeah, it's just like he's like so nonchalant about the fact that he broke out of their little zip cuffs. And so she comes crashing down, and they wind up duct taping the two of them to some merry-go-round horses or whatever. And he's like, great, just great, thanks. And then they cut to the dude that was on the second floor, goes into another office, and this office, there's a woman with speakers and is playing pretty loud, like dubstep music kind of shit, right? And she turns and looks at him, and it's Maya Lopez. And he says, we've got both of them. And then he kind of starts to like speak like he's talking to somebody who's deaf. And he's like, we have both of them. And then she kind of waves him off, and the door shuts, and it cuts to black, right? So, good.
No, I was just confirming, yes.
So, that cuts to black. So that being said, with the name of the next episode being Echo, and the fact that she's credited as Maya Lopez, yes, 100%. She's got to be playing Echo from the comics. Obviously, she's in charge of the Tracksuit Mafia, and again, I think overall you're going to find out that they're working for the Kingpin. But I mean, we'll see. I would love it because you really definitely need something bigger and badder than just the tracksuit mafia, and even Echo. I mean, Echo is not a horrible villain, for this, but like more, I would say more along the lines of like she would be Kate Bishop's villain, and then Hawkeye needs somebody aside from like the swordsman or whatever. Or they could keep it low key and low scale and just keep it as them. I guess I don't know. I mean, they haven't done wrong so far, and in 2 episodes they got me hooked. So I guess we'll find out. So what did you think of the 2 episodes?
Um, like I said before, a little bit too much put into Kate Bishop's family life for my taste. But if they can turn that into something like you're talking about, if it's Madame Mask and the swordsman, and they're gonna sort of, then maybe I will accept it. But actually, overall, I thought it's pretty good. I mean, it's a departure from the sort of normal Marvel tactic of sort of upvoting and uplifting like these B and C list characters. They've done almost the exact opposite here, and they've like, yes, he's human, very human. He just wants to be a normal human. They've played it the complete different direction here. And then you've got this girl in Kate Bishop who also is very human, but wants the exact opposite, right? Wants to be like an Avengers style superhero. And so the pair of them
puts him on a pedestal that he doesn't want to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the pair up could be great. I mean, this is going to be relatively short. We only get 6 episodes.
Yeah.
After tonight, we'll have seen half of them, so there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a mini series, so it's not like it's going to be a season 2. I mean, it doesn't mean they won't do one, but they're supposed to open and close the story inside the 6 episodes, so that they don't have to leave a cliffhanger.
Right. Yeah, and again, depending on the I guess the support of the fans, they'll decide that later, because they've always got a window, a back door that they can do.
Well, something. I mean, for my money, and I've said this at least 100 times now in other discussions, I mean, I think they're setting up for another Avengers trilogy in a future phase, but it's just going to be the Young Avengers. And so they're putting all the time into building up each of those characters that will be part of the Young Avengers.
Yeah, because now we've got Kate Bishop. So you've got
I mean, this is one of the
you've got you've got almost the whole team already not established, but introduced within the series.
And we talked about this before, particularly around WandaVision, but they brought in most of them. The Hawkeye replacement was a hole, but we thought, or at least I thought at the time, well, maybe they could just use Clint Barton's daughter. But now they've come up with a different way to do this, which is ironically comic book accurate, because a lot of what happens in the MCU is not comic book accurate, but it certainly seems that it's going to be on this one.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see after tonight. We'll see what goes on with episode 3. So yeah, all right. You got anything else on these?
No, I think we put enough time into this one.
All right. Yeah, I think so. I will say this was one we watched while we were up in New Hampshire, and when we got done with the first episode, Noah, who loves every MCU movie but is kind of sporadic on the different series that come out, after the first episode, he just looked at me and Heather and he was like, "All right, this is one I have to watch with you." Which is funny because Heather laughed and she was like, even when you were teeny tiny, like Hawkeye was always one of like your favorite characters. Like, I don't know what it was about Hawkeye. Maybe it was the human factor, but he always loved Hawkeye. So he's watching these with us. So yeah, there's going to be a big fanfare for it, I think. All right. So on that, you guys comment down below. Let us know what you think of episode 1 and 2 of Hawkeye. Like, subscribe, ring a bell. Hopefully not with one of Kate Bishop's arrows, please. Then hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks at facebook.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and anything else. Send us up a trick arrow. All right. We'll catch you guys later. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Armand III forever.
Oof. Yada forever.